Hey everyone, just wanted to remind everyone that the majority of people are being emotionally manipulated and played like a fiddle by, of course, the corporate mainstream media that do the bidding of the corporate political elite. As demonstrated by this article and many other articles that were puppeteered with the same headline, ex-Kentucky officer gets 5 years for unwanted sex with 5 women. Unwanted? Wait, you kind of do have to wonder what's happening in this country when drunken, awkward sex in college equals rape, but when 5 accusers go against a police officer and say that he raped them, where he even admitted on forcing himself non-consensually against 5 women, that somehow is just, quote, unwanted sex. And here you see the twisted paradigm and relationship between authority and the media, which should give you some hindsight and some thoughts to when this kind of leftist, now new leftist, twisted social justice warrior, pro-authoritarian, pro-government, pro-enforcement ideas are pushed out there into the mainstream, what it's really essentially all about. And if you're a person who advocates for government action, you need to be reminded that this is what happens when government enforcement and authority gets too big. It becomes unaccountable, reckless, and dangerous for the common man or woman. And this brings me to the point of this video, the power of the people, specifically talking about all the protests in the world that oddly the majority of which are being ignored, while others are becoming extremely valuable to learn from. This plus a lot more on an independent media organization that's funded by you and you only through your support on wearechange.org/donate. Click the link in the description below and get involved in the fight for free speech and independent media by contributing either with physical mail, cryptocurrencies, PayPal, the products we have, the commissions we have, or even without even spending a single dollar and just using crypto privacy-backed applications that also earn you money, like Brave, Presearch, DLive, Steemit, and other alternatives that I think you guys should really check out and understand that, hey, even if you're broke, this is a win-win situation for me and you together. So yeah, definitely check out these links in the description. And plus, these are really cool alternatives that I personally use. I've been doing live streams on this particular platform right here that I bet everyone, of course, would enjoy. So don't forget to check out wearechange.org/donate for more information about that. Now, as you probably saw, I was pretty frustrated talking about the first article, and how can you not be, since the media has so much power and influence that it just decides essentially what is right and wrong, and many times those lines are blurred because of special interests, because of authorities, because of the bottom line and making money. And even with simply determining what to cover and not, this creates a situation that greatly benefits or greatly hurts a large amount of individuals and people. And when it comes to protests, which by the way are happening all around the world, deciding them to cover them is a very big implication, because essentially it shows that the people have power, which is something people with power don't really want you to know. They don't want you to know that you also have power, especially as a major group. And you wouldn't know this if you were watching the mainstream media, but right now there are major protests in Ecuador that are anti-austerity. Major anti-government, anti-corruption protests happening in Iraq, where citizens are being gunned down by the US-backed authorities there. Major anti-government, anti-corruption protests happening in Haiti right now, with many civilian casualties as well. Huge protests in France still amassing under the Yellow Vest movement, going for 47 weeks strong now, which of course is still being met with brutal repression from the French authorities. And of course, the protests in Hong Kong are just becoming more brutal and more violent by the week, creating a countless number of injured civilians. And here in the West, we barely hear a peep about it. And of course, the horse stream media. But the protests that do happen in the West are just absolutely stupid and idiotic. Going after chicken restaurants, and if not that, some boring libertarian in Canada that a grandma wants to see that's being stopped by people who view her as the problem. Yes, an elderly grandmother is the focus of this protest because she wants to hear a boring, not even entertaining libertarian. It's some gay dude named Ruben. And this is how just socially conditioned, how effective the disinformation and propaganda is in the West. And this is, by in part, why we don't hear of the protests that are actually happening, that actually matter, that actually are going against something that a lot of the elites don't want you knowing that you have power over. Now, it's important to note here that the Hong Kong protests have been getting far more significant protest coverage than, of course, the Yellow Vests or even the other protests that I mentioned beforehand. And, of course, as I talked about this before, this could be because of the geopolitical positioning between China and the United States, but also specifically because the Hong Kong protesters have extremely good public relations, and they not only make it easy, they not only help, but they go out of their way to make sure that their messaging is easily digestible for journalists to regurgitate. And this is next level PR here from a very, 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 very highly intelligent, high IQ protest group that many people could learn from. Recently in Hong Kong, there was a law passed where Hong Kongers can no longer hide their face. In response to this, the brilliant high IQ level protesters in Hong Kong decided to have wearable projectors literally hide their identity by projecting another person's face on their face so the high-tech social credit score surveillance systems can't find their face. I mean, if this wasn't just absolutely brilliant, I don't know what is. Creating a situation where the law no longer works for them. Even portraying themselves as Leonardo DiCaprio, Barack Obama, doing this, of course, all legally, or just drawing themselves as Pepe the Frog, which is one of their favorite logos to represent this larger protest in order to galvanize the internet behind them, which they have done in an incredible fashion, making the subject of their protests unavoidable. We have to talk about this because it's just honestly really stunning. And again, something that a lot of people should learn from, since in many ways they are extremely effective in marketing their message. And the entertainment, artistic, intellectual actions that this is sparking is truly inspiring. Even an image that I had a friend take of me during my coverage of the protest has gone absolutely viral everywhere, especially Reddit, where a lot of this conversation is being dominated, sparking the ideas of liberty, sparking the ideas of free thought and expression that shouldn't be censored, liberties and rights that are enabled by our Creator and not by government. Now, of course, the larger nuances and what these protesters are and what they stand for, we highly debated and we talked about in our more intensive coverage on this specific YouTube channel. But this topic is definitely coming home and showing a lot of individuals' true colors, especially corporations who are, of course, trying to make a lot of money in the Chinese market, including companies like the NBA that are pretty much flip-flopping on their response, depending on, of course, where the wind blows, essentially. But it's interesting seeing individuals like Steve Kerr, who has been labeled as an individual that is not afraid to speak truth to power, an individual who is a very, very anti-gun proponent, anti-Second Amendment activist, who fearmongers and talks about whatever political issue he wants to talk about, except for specifically this latest incident that, of course, that the NBA is involved with when it comes to China and the Hong Kong protesters, which he's actually afraid to even give a comment about. Now, of course, I could also understand the apprehension. Even as a journalist, it crosses my mind, thinking about my reporting on China, me being in Hong Kong, me actually doing the reporting on the ground, and understanding that there's some implications to this, even as a person that's independent with no strings attached. But still, that is something that hasn't stopped me and won't ever stop me. But when you see it portrayed on the national stage, as we see with the NBA, as we see with James Harden and Steve Kerr, it really just shows the true color of individuals and organizations. And this is, of course, very interesting coming from the NBA that receives a lot of benefits and subsidies from the government, receiving what many people call handouts. And now interesting to see their take on American politics compared to, of course, Chinese politics, which, of course, they bow down to. And they're not the only ones who did that. It's also California-based companies like Blizzard. Who would have thought a California-based company being hypocritical? No. But Blizzard, being a gaming entertainment company, literally decided to punish one of their gamers for talking about Hong Kong by banning that gamer, taking away the reward money, and punishing him because he had a political idea that he expressed. And now, luckily, there is some recourse. There are some people calling this out. And I do believe that this is definitely a step in the right direction. Now, if we uncover the kind of Chinese manipulation, we should also understand that there's U.S. government Pentagon disinformation, especially when it comes to sporting games and signs of patriotism, and especially when it comes to also Hollywood, that has been bowing down and obeying the Chinese censors in order to, of course, sell their films and show their films and make money in China. We have to understand, the bigger institutions, they're essentially whores for the top dollar, and they sell themselves not only to China, but also to the U.S. war machine and the U.S. military-industrial complex in many outrageous ways that censors ideas and information that they don't like. And a lot of these big corporations will just do whatever they're told, just like Apple. Apple, that's supposedly standing up for your privacy, allegedly. Apple recently removed the Taiwanese flag from its emoji in Hong Kong. Why? Well, it's trying to appease China. And if they're willing to do this, imagine what they're willing and most likely already have done for the U.S. government. We know that the Chinese system is oppressive, violates human rights, goes after basic human rights and freedoms, and we have to understand that we also in the United States are not far away from that here as well, and that there already is a social credit score that does exist, that the government does track, trace, and database almost every single thing you do, say, or believe in into their databases, and that the dangers that we keep talking about abroad are also some of the dangers that we face here at home. And at least now, the conversation is starting, which overall I think is a good thing. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you appreciated this video, please share it with your friends and family members, because if you don't, hell, no one else will. We're getting totally screwed. It's whatever. I'm still here. I'm still going to do what I love to do. I'm most likely going to be traveling and reporting on something very soon. If you have any ideas of where you would like to see me go, let me know in the comment section below. And overall, thank you so much for staying tuned. Definitely check out our live stream link, because we definitely will be live later on tonight. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us. Love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.